What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I'm out here in the shop today. This is part 3 on our diesel powered pressure washer that we're building here. So tell you a little bit about it. My camera cut off on the end of part 2 and I didn't get to explain the rest of the video, but tell you a little bit about it. I finally got this thing dialed in. This fuel tank I've just set up here, it's not even hooked up yet, but I got this thing dialed in. It seems to like about 3,500 PSI with a number 5 tip. I'm overdriving the pump just a little bit to do that because the pump is a 4.5 gallon a minute pump, and I've got a 1.8 to 1 pulley ratio right here because that's what I come up with on the pulley size. As I explained in the first video, the pulley size, this is a 15 3/4, and this is like an 8 3/4, 9, something like that, somewhere in there. The next pulley size up was 3 inches bigger than this, which is way too much. And this pulley here is so large that this has to be pretty large. But anyway, that's what I came up with. So I'm turning the engine to get peak horsepower out of the engine. This engine needs to turn at 3,600 or just a little bit more, actually. I have a diesel welding machine over there with the 722 engine, which is the 3-cylinder version of this. It's the same pistons and rods and stroke and everything. It's just one more extra cylinder, where this is a 2-cylinder, 722 is a 3-cylinder. Anyway, the no load speed on it is 3,750, and under load they run at 3,600. So I've got this set to run about 3,700 with no load on it, and so we're overdriving this pump with a load. It drops down to 3,450 or so under load, and I think this pump here is turning about 1,900, 1,850, 1,900 under load. So I'm overdriving this pump by about 10%, which is giving us almost 5 gallon a minute out of the pump instead of 4.5, which I think will be okay. I've run this thing for 4.5 hours just testing. I actually washed my truck and trailer with it, and I'm still running off the fuel can I got sitting on the ground here. It's boat fuel tank. But anyway, I wanted to run it, and everything seems to be okay so far. As I say, 3,500 PSI with a number 5 tip is 4.7 gallons a minute is what we're coming up with. If I tighten on down on the regulator a little bit more, I can get about 3,800 out of it before the engine is just under too much load, too much strain, and with no water on the bypass. So backed off a little bit. About 3,500 is where the engine seems happy. Everything seems happy at. I've let this thing set and run, with my hand off the trigger. The transmission cooler idea seems to be working great. I've not seen any water come out of the thermal relief, and as I say, I've let this thing set probably 20 or 30 minutes without squeezing the trigger, and the transmission cooler going for the bypass seems to be working well. I've held my hand on the pump. It does not appear to be getting hot. Everything seems to be working well. So what I'm doing today is I'm making brackets and stuff. We actually done got it made for the fuel tank. I've got my upper radiator hose here in finally. We didn't have that in the previous video. My 90 is what I was waiting on. So I finally got a 90 in right here, and it's just going from a 90 with a coupler to a 180, and got it like that. I made these brackets to hold the fuel tank. I decided to mount the fuel tank on top instead of, I was considering mounting it off this end down here. But I think I want to leave this end open. That way it gives me an option and a place to put a hose reel in the future. I can put me like a pedestal up right here or something and mount me a hose reel, and so it don't stick way out the end. So anyway, I've got these brackets here made. I had to notch this bracket just using plate that I already had. I already had these bolts. Got this up there. I'm going to cut these bolts off, and I'm actually going to take this back off and paint up under it. But anyway, I put it on there for now, got it snugged down. Left enough room so you can get right here to the radiator cap with no issue. There's enough room up under there for everything you need to do. I've got my air cleaner mounted here with a piece of square tubing that I had. and it's sitting up there. Looks like it came that way. And I've got this here cut at a 45 so that the pump can slide back for loosening the belt up. I think that'll work. Just like the simplest way to make that work right there. It comes down over here, it clears by the muffler there with no issues. As I say, I have not got the fuel lines here hooked up, and I probably don't even have the right fittings to get it hooked up, which I didn't have a hose barb when I did this. That's just a piece of clear tubing tightened down inside that to make it work. So anyway, I've got to get that and the return line that I've got running in this tank plumbed up to here, but so far it's coming together. This is a few weeks since I finished the previous video or whatever, but like I say, I've had this thing run about 4.5 hours, washed my truck with it. So far everything seems to be going well. This is a 10-gallon fuel cell here, which these come with foam in them because this is a racing fuel cell, and I removed the foam out of the tank down in here so that the foam wouldn't deteriorate, because the foam is for sloshing, keep the fuel from sloshing in there in a race car. Well, this is not a race car, so anyway, but you can see the sump down in there, so you'll be able to get every little bit of fuel out of it, as you see. But 10-gallon fuel cell, you should be able to wash for at least 8 hours under full load. So a full day's worth of washing before you have to worry about putting fuel in it. So you'll want a sandwich or a break before you run out of fuel, as long as you start with it full of fuel. So got everything set up there like I wanted it to be. I still got to pick up my metal for my belt guard. I have not went and got that yet, but I've just been piddling around out here today and getting everything set up the way I want it. I'm going to pull this tank back off, as I say, go ahead and get this painted. All right guys, so finally getting a chance to work on the pressure washer project a little bit more. I've been working on a belt guard just a little bit at a time. Got this fabbed up. This is some 3-inch channel. I had to notch out right here for the exhaust, the way I have the exhaust and the muffler rigged up on this. But that there is going to go on here, and then I've got this sheet right here that is going to cover the front of it up, and I'm going to attach that with some screws. I bought some screws over here that are they're not self-drilling, but they're self-threading. I got 2 different size drill bits, and the idea here is I'm going to drill first with these quarters here, and then once I get all my holes drilled all the way through the sheet that's going over the front and the frame, I'm going to come back and just drill the sheet with these bigger ones, so that the bolts will go through the holes in the sheet, and then they'll be able to thread into this here. Also got some hose here for the coolant line out of the bottom that is too short, that I got stretched really tight to make work right now. All right guys, so now I've got the frame for the belt guard up here, tacked into place, just welded on the ends here. It's not touching right here where the motor mount is at, so the engine can still move independently of this. There's enough space there. This here is on the actual frame, it's not on the engine itself. Tacked on the other end down here and here, so we're ready to bolt the cover on there. The humidity out here is very high today. It's been raining, and so the paint is not drying very well, so the paint is going to stick. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, really. Supposedly, I should be able to take this bolt with the holes I have drilled here, hold this up here, and run this in here, and it should self-start. That is the plan anyways. Get this up here some kind of way, like this, in order to get it started. And that's the reason I made these holes a little bigger on the cover, so that they won't thread through it, they'll just thread in the frame here. Obviously you could have did this with nuts welded to the back, but this seemed better. So that's the way it went. Broke it off. That's not good. Broke that one off as well. Well, I may not have the hole drill big enough in there, the drill bit that I'm using. So we'll see if I can get this to drill out of here now. Drill bit. And I should be wearing safety glasses. Alright guys, I think I got it figured out. I'm putting some anti-seize on here and running the bolt kind of in and out a little bit at a time, and they're going ahead in there. I think this drill bit that I used was a hair small, but that's what I had, or what I bought, because I wasn't sure what I needed, so I'm getting them in there. That corner of that channel right there is pretty thick. You say I'm getting them on in there. I'm gonna get them all run in there. All right, guys, give you a quick look at it here. I got the belt guard all on there, painted up and everything. Back of it right there. I've got our new water hoses on here, coming up here to the cooler, routed up under there a little more better than they was before. All right, guys, figured I'd stop and give you guys a little bit of an update. Been working on this thing. I've got something that resembles a control panel built here. So we'll have an ignition switch, an hour meter, a fuel gauge. I marked right here where I can drill for a temperature gauge. I'm not sure how useful that'll be on a pressure washer, but how you'll be 50 or 100 foot away from it and you won't be able to see it. So I don't know if I'll add that or not. I've already overheated the thing once because I was running it without any of this stuff on here. Washed my truck a couple times actually since I've been working with this thing, and the old fan belt that was on there broke right as I was finishing up, and I turned around. I seen it was overheating or whatever, spraying coolant stuff out of it. So I ran over here and shut it down real quick. I got it, let it set and cool off, and then I got some more water put back in it, antifreeze and whatnot, and started it back up, ran it another 15 or 20 minutes, everything seemed fine. So hopefully we didn't damage anything whenever that happened. But I got to get all these gauges wired up. You see the water wires I got in there. I don't know, I'm not going to do no real super fancy wiring job on this. I'm not the best at wiring this sort of stuff up anyways. Just got to get it functional. This is a glow plug, has glow plugs built in the switch. If I get everything wired up, so you turn it one way for glow plug, and then you crank it, the IR meter, fuel gauge, figure out how that hooks up. Then we got to put a place down here to mount our battery, and then mount the burner assembly over here, which won't be nothing to that, shouldn't be. And then I've got to figure out something to do with a throttle cable there. The way I've been running it here is just tying this bungee cord in this hole right here, and that pulls it wide open. So I need to come up with something a little better for that. Some kind of throttle cable. This here is your shutdown. So I should be able to hook that up on the ignition switch over there. Get that all working, so when you cut the key off, the solenoid shuts it off. So quite a bit more small stuff to do. It's going to take some time. I'm going to call it good for time being. Go take a break and I'll work on this thing some other time. All right, guys, I've got the burner assembly sitting up there. It's not welded down or anything. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. I've turned it the other way. This is how I originally planned for it to go. But like I said, when I started this, I knew that the frame rail I had, the piece of tubing I had to make the frame out of, was too short. So it's going to hang over the end. I'm thinking about ordering a foot of tubing and adding onto that, cut the foot in half, adding 6 inches onto that frame rail right there, just because it looks goofy like that. I just got a little shim stuck up under that right there to hold it level, but that's about where it would have to sit at. I'm seriously considering ordering some metal from my own line, just have it shipped to me 1 foot. Don't want to drive all the way to the metal store and have them cut it. Probably wouldn't be any cheaper anyways. So thinking about doing that. I've got that sitting up there. I did some wiring on it. I've got to wire the alternator up. This wiring's not done. It's kind of cobbled together there right now. Still working on that. A fuel gauge, IR meter, ignition switch. I have not, or am not going to be able to use this solenoid right here that's on here. It's bad, and I'm making they make one that goes on here somewhere. I may be missing the bracket for it, but they make another solenoid style that goes on here that I can probably put on there if that's important. It's not a huge deal. I mean, it'll run right there. All you gotta do is cut it off, is hold that right there till it goes dead. And you know, that's not a huge deal. Still gotta hook up a throttle cable to this right here. For the time being, as I say, you can use that right there. That's be wide open. And if you want the idle, you can take that off. So I have to figure that out. Other than that, I think we're ready to put some water in this thing. I'm going to crank it up and let it run, so I can figure out which one of these alternator terminals is energizing it, and I'll be able to tell by the load on the engine. One of them is supposed to go to an idiot light, I think. The other one energizes it. I don't know which one. I just need to hook up the one that energizes it to the ignition switch. So when the key is on, it charges the battery. But that's what she's going to look like right there. And I'll have to do something else with this this hose right here. I just got it hooked up right like that right there for now. Hindsight's always 20/20. It looks like to me, now that they've got everything done, it would have probably made more sense to put the burner on this end down here and possibly turned it around the other way and made the frame rail a little bit wider to do that. And then my control panels, would have been side by side. Not the end of the world, I guess. Just stuff you figure out when you get done building stuff. Well, it would have been better if you turned it the other way. Oh well, let's hook some water up, get this thing cranked up. All right guys, so I don't have the battery mounted on it yet. I have a dead battery sitting on the floor with a battery charger hooked to it. So I will have to get that sorted out. But let's see if this thing will crank. Should be for the glow plugs. I've already purged the system, got the water going through the pump and out through the hose. That's a really, really good fuel tank there. eBay special. That is super sweet. Side of it just busted out. Wasn't expecting that. That's crazy. Man, man, man. Well, guys, I gotta say, I did not see that one coming. It cracked right down the center of the wheel right there. You can see the light color right there where the crack's at. Right down the center of it. So I'm guessing I should have had some rubber isolators between the mounts and the tank, but I didn't really give that a thought because the engine is isolated on rubber mounts, as you see right here already. The engine is sitting on this with the air filter here, and then this here is welded to the actual frame as well as that right there. So the tank is mounted to the frame. The engine is sitting on rubber isolators, so I didn't think that would be an issue, but apparently we got a crack for some reason. All right guys, I've got the tank back off of there. Made a big mess doing it. Caught some of it in the bucket. Get your guys' opinion here. I don't know if it was caused by vibration or just a bad weld or a little bit of both. But that weld doesn't look too good to me. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it doesn't look like that weld penetrated. I mean, I would have figured if it was going to crack from vibration, it would have cracked at the mounts. Alright guys, so I got the new tank in. I think I said in the previous part of this video, that's been like a week ago, but I think I said I was getting a new tank because the old one split, and trying to fix it. I don't have an aluminum welder, and paying somebody to fix it, I might as well just buy a new tank. I bought this tank here from Jegs. It's made the same place as the other one, but I think it's a little better quality. I pulled the foam out of it just as I did with the old one, and I looked down in there, and I can actually see on this one here where the seam is welded that the weld penetrates all the way through, as on the previous tank it does not. So I think most of our problem was just a faulty weld combined with some vibration from this thing. But this tank here seems to be a little bit better made. It even has an inspected sticker on it. It was inspected by Zui Dong. Probably not how you say that, but anyways. I figured buying it from Jegs. For those of you not familiar, Jegs sells race car parts, and I figured buying it from them, they probably have this tank made to like their specifications or something. So it's probably slightly better quality than the other tank that I had that I purchased off eBay. The tabs here for the mounting tabs here are gusseted, where the old ones over there are not. And so we're going to do a couple things on this to kind of eliminate some of the vibration transfer into the tank as well, where the other one split down through here. I'll show you that in a minute. But the leveling, or the level unit, sending unit for the fuel gauge is a little different. This appears to be of a little better quality. I don't know, we'll see. The other one is just made like this, as you see, and then the mounting tabs are just thin aluminum angle right there. So anyway, the vibration deal, I'm going to put this piece of metal here. I got this paint drying here, it's just sitting there. Put this piece of metal in between here. So instead of this vibrating at a different frequency maybe than this, maybe causing an issue, we'll tie them together. And then I bought some isolation, rubber isolation bushings that are inch tall that I'm going to put on here. And so we'll raise the tank up an inch, and that should eliminate our vibration problem. And maybe our new fuel tank will last longer than 30 minutes. So let me get the bushings out, and I'll get the welder fired up, get that welded in place, and then we'll see if this tank's going to fit up here. All right guys, here's our rubber isolation bushings that I got here, 3/8 ID, 1 inch tall, and I think they're about, I don't know, 3/4, 1 inch wide. The holes here, 2 of the holes like just a little bit lining up, so I had to drill another set of holes right there, as you see. No big deal. All right guys, we're about to do our final test run on this thing. I think I'm just about done with it. I got a few wires I might need to tidy up a little bit from the old system, the old wiring harness. I need to cut them off right here just to make that where it's not laying there like that. But beyond that, I think we are just about good to go. I've got a temperature gauge on here. I may need to put a little bit of Loctite on them nuts, keep it from vibrating loose. The fuel gauge is a bit iffy. I think we have an issue with this sending unit right here. I've already put fuel in this tank and everything. I'm not going to send it back. I thought at first that it was the wrong sending unit in here. In other words, maybe they put the wrong impedance sending unit in there, because you can get a 0 to 90 ohm fuel gauge, or you can get I think a 230 to 30 or 40 ohm gauge. I got one of them, hooked it up, it don't work either. But when it's running, the vibration, sometimes it'll start reading kind of right. So anyway, not a huge deal to pop the cap and look in there, I suppose. I've got a universal throttle cable for a lawnmower hooked up here. I got it run around there to the throttle. Show you the front side over here. So we got our ignition switch here. We got a water tip. I have not run this thing with the water gauge installed, but I did run it about 4.5 hours. The other day I washed 2 trucks, 2 trailers, and I didn't have any issues with it. And I also ran it probably 4 or 5 hours before I even got any gauges on here whatsoever. So I've actually run the pump probably 8 hours or so in this configuration. But as I say, we got a throttle on it now instead of a tarp strap, so that we can set our RPM wherever we want. I've got a battery plate made down here. Picked up a hold down through Tractor Supply. That's probably not the best setup in the world, but it's going to work for right now. May change it up a little bit different. I made the battery plate, I made it a little bit wider than what it really needed to be, and I was planning on just put a tarp strap on it, but I picked up a battery hold down, and so that's going to work. This thing is not you know, a mobile piece of equipment, so it's not a big deal there. You know, I could put something here to keep the battery from sliding if it wants to or something, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. I made it for a Group 31 battery. That way I can set that or anything smaller, whatever I have on hand. I usually have a Group 31 truck battery sitting around somewhere, so made sense to make it for it. Let's see, I've got the burner down here. I extended the frame, and it'll probably show it better from the other side. But I extended this frame like I was talking about so that I could get the burner away from up in here so close, and so that it's not overhanging the frame. The frame ended right here, and I knew that was going to be an issue whenever I started building this like this in this configuration, but the piece of tubing I had wasn't long enough, so I had to order, I think I ordered added 7 inches onto it is what I did, and then this is tight welded in place. I need to put a new fit in here. This fitting's leaking. That's not a big deal. There'll be a few small bugs to work out here, there, and yonder, I'm sure. But overall, it's together, and we're going to crank this thing up and let it run. Make sure this temperature gauge works. So I also put a stop solenoid on it right here. I ordered this, and what this does. This is a 12 volt. When you apply 12 volts to the solenoid, it pulls this to kill the engine, okay? So that's a momentary circuit. So the glow plugs is also momentary. So what I did was this key here has a glow plug. So I wired the stop switch into that. So whenever I want to apply the glow plugs, it applies that too. So whenever I get ready to cut the engine off, from the run position, you cut it back to off, it'll still be running, hold it over there to glow plug position to kill the engine. That seemed like the simplest way to do it, so that's the way I did it. So anyway, let's see what this thing will do. All right, guys, so I ran that thing for 10 minutes straight on the trigger, wide open throttle, a number 5 tip, 3,600 PSI. It will go to 3,800 PSI if you screw the regulator on down there. But it's about 4.8 gallons a minute, somewhere in there. That's all the power it's got. That was maximum pull on it, as much as you can load it. And 205, 208. It's a little hotter than I would like. I'm definitely glad I went with the 3-row radiator that I got. For you guys who have not seen the previous videos of this, I think this was a Fiat. I don't remember what radiator it was. You have to go back and look at the other video. Anyway, I found it on eBay, and I ordered the extra width one. So 3-row, I think, instead of the standard 2-row. I'm glad I did that because it's definitely none too big. Anyway, seems to be working good. As I say, I'm gonna crank it back up, let it run a little more. But we'll go ahead and wrap this video up, I suppose. The fuel gauge doesn't work. Again, there's something wrong with the sending unit. I can't catch a break on the fuel tank deal. First fuel tank was bad, second one's got a bad sending unit. At least it's not busted at the seams yet. And as I say, I've run this thing about 5 hours now. And maybe I'll pick up another sending unit at some point. It's not that big a deal right now. So yeah, seems to be working good. I got to figure out where I'm gonna put this thing at and move it out of the way. But everything seems to be working good. You know, there's a couple things I could change. Like the way I got this hose routed right here. You know, I could make that a little bit better, but it's working the way it is. Now the fuel gauge decides to work. Maybe it's something with the gauge, but I'm thinking it's something with a sending unit. Beats me. I don't think that'll be a problem holding that key like that. You know, it's engaging the glow plugs, but you're only holding it for like 3 seconds till the engine goes dead. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm gonna wrap this video up. That should be the end of this build series, and hopefully this thing will last a long time. I did not get too fancy with the wiring like some people would have done. You know, these things can be controlled by a computer thing and have it where it's shut down, you know, at a loss of oil pressure, over temperature, all that sort of stuff. I chose not to do all that. My wiring is not too fancy. So anyway, it is what it is, you know, but it's working. You can see how hot that exhaust got right there when I was running that thing for 10 minutes at full load, like I was. Typically, you're not going to be running that thing quite that hard because it's hard to hold. It's uncomfortable to hold at that output. But yeah, anyway, seems to be working good, so hopefully to continue to do so.